having created this whole universe or continuously creating this universe, he says, dear Narada, if not for that Supreme and his touch of sanctity, I would not have been capable of creating that which I am creating. And then in the 6th chapter, he goes into explaining when he started creating this whole universe and had to offer the first yajna, first offering to be made, Brahmaji had a problem. What was the problem? Where is the material other than the Lord that can be offered to the Lord? The same kind of concept which comes in even Purusha Sukta, wherein he says that that Purusha was made the sacrificial offer, that Purusha was made the altar on which this sacrificial offer was offered, that Purusha was made the Yajna Kunda, that Purusha was made the Agni. Now if there is nothing other than the Lord, where would the material come to make an offering? Once you make that kind of offering, offer completely within and without, that is when it yields to the next level of result. So here Brahmaji says, Beta Narad, the 14 lokas, Chaturdasha Bhuvana, the Lord is in and through this Chaturdasha Bhuvana, but yet he is not influenced by anything that is in the Chaturdasha Bhuvana. Why is this Chaturdasha Bhuvana created? So that during the Kalpa, during this whole eon, wherein human beings and different creatures, they take birth, and here he makes a very specific note. He says that Jiva are both in the Jada and the Chaitanya format. Jiva being in the Jada format because of the earlier Papa that has been accumulated, along with the 84 lakh yonis, add one more option that we have, is to get into the Jada Yoni. Jada Yoni of being a rock or a mountain, or these are all Jada. Probably this lectern had done lot of papa, had ounce of punya. कितने कितने महात्मा आकर बोल गए. Guruji himself had come. There are so many other Swamijis who had come. The Bhagavad was kept on it. Bhagavad Gita was kept on it. Ramayana was kept on it. So it had a little lesh of punya, including the chairs that you are sitting on, the carpet that you are sitting on. So there are Jada Jiva and there are Chaitanya Jiva. Chaitanya Jiva, the one which has the Chaitanya Swarupa. Jada Swarupa has only the Sat Swarupa. So all these creatures, when they are created, they keep transmigrating, moving up and down in their life processes. They do good, they progress forward. They do bad, they get demoted. You have had lot of earning. You moved into a palatial building. The bubble burst. All that you had to sell. And then you moved into a smaller apartment. Then again, as luck would have it, you had a firm footing, and then with lot of sincere effort, you worked hard and earned lot. Then again you move into another dream house. So you keep fluctuating, right? Similarly, the jiva also fluctuates. For most of the human beings, most of the creatures, they move from Bhuloka, earth, Bhuvarloka, the intermediary, and the Swargaloka. They keep circulating in these three worlds. And the reason he says is because of lack of discipline and lack of brahmacharya for a long period of time, they keep transmigrating only into these three forms of apartments: Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka and the Swargaloka. Whereas those people who have been either a long-lasting brahmacharya, vanaprastha or sannyasa, they move to the other lokas also, called the Janaloka, Taparloka and the Satyaloka. The highest being the Satyaloka, wherein Brahmaji is residing. It is his residential address. And probably on the side he has his office also. Seated in the same place, he has both. Probably he has, you can imagine, he has 4 chambers, each head answering one chamber. So the middle loka, Bhuloka, the upper lokas and the lower lokas handled by the 3 heads. The remaining head engages in constant Harikatha, Harikirtana. Constantly they are reveling in the Lord. Imagine maintaining one family. We lose track of Lord. Now maintaining this universe with these many worlds, Brahmaji says, it is very easy for me also to forget the Lord. That is why, thank goodness, Lord has created me with 4 heads, that with one head I constantly keep reveling on the Harikirtana. Thus this, when this whole world is created, how is it created? In the 19th sloka of the 6th chapter, he says, Padeshu sarva bhutani pumsas sthitipado viduhu amritam kshemam abhayam trimurdno dhi adhi adhayi murdhasu. The same kind of concept that comes in the Purusha Sukta. Tripadurdhva udait purushaha padosyeha. If that whole mass of Supreme be divided into 4 parts, Akshayam, Abhayam, it is untouched. Tripadurdhva udait purushaha. The 3 parts are untouched. With the one part that comes into this universe, this whole big universe that we see across, half of the universe we see, half of it we don't see. Or more than half of it we don't even see. Not that it is unmanifest, it is manifest, yet we don't know about it. For that matter, within the earth, we just keep hearing of so many places. We don't know what those places are. We've just heard about it. I think it was in Houston. I asked, just for the sake of example, have you gone to Siberia? And this person says yes. I started asking all weird places of the globe. Antarctica, Arctic. He said yes. And I was confused, what do you do for a living? I work for a gas extracting company, pipelining. So they have their gas offshores, all these places. So being an engineer, I have to travel to all those places. Imagine so many places within this globe we have not been. We have just heard about it, but we have no direct experience. Similarly, in this universe, there are so many other Brahmanda. Like we have this Brahmanda of this solar system, where the solar system is a part of it. There are Sahasra. There are many such Brahmandas. You could say parallel universes. That is why even in the Arati we say, Asya Deva Devasya Akhilanda Koti Brahmanda Nayakasya. Who is he? He is the sole supreme of Koti Brahmanda. Crores of, millions of such Brahmandas, parallel universes. The same universe, we have not even reached the farther end of it. Because the more we think that we have reached Within another 2-3 months, they keep saying that we found something else. There is so much more that we have not seen. All that manifest world is just one little part of that Supreme. The point here is, instead of focusing on how big this Brahmanda is, focus on the source from which the Brahmanda has come. Once you have reached the source, you know what the expanse of Brahmanda is. The reality of this Brahmanda is. So this Brahmanda, when it gets created, it first comes into the form of unmanifest Hiranyagarbha. Here Brahmaji makes a very beautiful comment. He says, I am nothing but an thought in Narayana's Yoga Nidra. If Brahmaji himself is a thought in Narayana's Yoga Nidra, what about his creation? And what about those of us who are sitting here thinking about this creation? Thought of a thought of a thought. And then we are indulged only in our thoughts. Constantly struggling with our thoughts. If Brahmaji himself was the thought of most potential thought, first thought to become many, Brahmaji was created. And in Brahmaji's imagination is this whole creation. I love that whole concept, which matches some of the quantum theories later. In reality, what is this? Nothing but, when you go into the deeper cores of the atom, there is nothing but some fuzzy matter. How could it be just fuzzy matter? Because it is nothing but just a thought. That is why it is fuzzy, but looks real. So from that Hiranyagarbha sthiti of unmanifest, there is already plan of the creation with all its rules and regulations of how each thing has to be maintained, how each thing has to be in balance. And look at the world, how beautiful everything is in its simple balance. The other day I was reading, at the same time there was somebody else with whom I had to discuss this. I said, Swamiji, I am surprised. It was a revealing factor that the most weakest force on earth is the gravitational force, because of which all planetary movements are hanging in place. Even if there is 1/1,000,000th of a difference in that force, this universe would not have been as we see it. What a delicate balance. But it is in balance. So everything manifests out in absolute balance. Having created the world, he becomes the part of this creation. Meaning, every particle in this universe, nanyam bhagavatah kinchit bhavyam sadasatatmakam. Bhagavatam nanyat kinchit. Other than the Lord, other than the divinity, there is nothing in this universe. If at all you can recognize something as this, you can recognize it only as this divinity. Anything other than that, if we read or misread, it is kalpana matra. It is our imagination into that divinity or onto that divinity. Because there is nothing other than that Supreme. Now in this Supreme, this beautiful creation, when does the Lord come? Bhagavad Gita very beautifully puts it in 2 shlokas. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srujamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkrutam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Very beautifully put by the Lord himself. He says, what is the first reason? Yada yada dharmasya glanihi bhavati. There is one great master who had interpreted dharma as the natural equanimity, natural balance. Glanihi bhavati gets changed. Natural balance, when it gets disturbed, whenever it gets disturbed, he comes down to set it back in its own course. Dharma means yaya dharyate idam jagat sarvam iti dharmam. That because of which everything is in cohesiveness, that beautiful balance is called dharma. In fact, when we expand it into our own life, when we say dharma baddha jivita, meaning living a life of righteousness according to dharma, meaning maintaining that delicate balance even in our lives, wherein everything stays cohesive. It's not running haywire. Then somebody asks, what kind of dharma is it when it can so easily get disturbed? Sant Jnaneshwarji puts it very beautifully. He says, it is not the dharma that is getting disturbed. It is people who have to live that balance, they are disturbed. They don't apply the dharma in its right sense. So it is actually the glani of those who are supposed to live dharma jivita. Abhyuttanam, to bring out that balance in our hearts. When somebody does something wrong, what do you do with them? You punish them. This is the human way of dealing it. Now the example that can be taken is of a mother. You have 2 children, 2 or 3 children, as many. Of the children, whom would you pay attention to? The one who is able to walk by himself, or the one who needs a support? Whom would you take closer to yourself? The one who can manage everything by himself or herself, or the one who is not able to manage? In fact, in your 2 sons, there is one who is so sincere in their effort. They're pretty straightforward in whatever they have to do. And the other one has no focus, no sincerity. With whom do you spend more time? The one who requires that kind of time. So here the Lord says, Paritranaya sadhuna. The Lord's compassion is to be talked. This is the way His compassion works. He says, those who are on the right track, He protects them on that righteous track, righteous path. And those who are the ones who are disturbing it, He takes them to Himself. Because all of them who had created disturbance, those who get punished in the hands of Lord, what happens to them? They merge into the Lord. What a compassion. In fact, they should be punished, right? Instead of punishing, He merges them into Himself. That is why Bhishma, when he finds that the Lord is really getting irritated with him, it was already the 9th day. Probably Lord has already chalked out a plan. Bhishma, you are staying more than the plan that I had for you. So he jumps down, pulls out the wheel from his own cart, runs to him. Yeah, maja aa gaya. Oh. He falls down on his knees. Lord, what else can be a boon? Go ahead. The Lord in disgust throws that and says, then probably that is when Bhishma hints, send Arjuna to me. I understand your scheme, now send Arjuna to me, I'll tell him the plan. Because Bhishma knew that if it is in hands of Lord, Sadhyo Mukti, then and there you get Mukti. Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, everybody, Lord takes them to himself. It can be misconstrued to a different aspect also, but you have to be perfect even in that. Narayana. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushrutam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Now yuge yuge does not mean that once in the Satya Yuga, once in Treta Yuga, once in Dwapara Yuga and once in Kali Yuga. It is not once in a yuga. Yuga means a moment. Whenever that moment is right enough, ripe enough, he comes down. In order to support himself, he can take various forms within that yuga, within that same moment. He can take various forms. Now for the one who has created this universe, taking another form, would it be a big deal? Or to the one who has the art of multiplying himself into this multitude of universe, taking another few forms, is it a big deal? So he comes into various forms, and those various forms were explained by Brahmaji to Narada in the 7th chapter. This is also known as Sankshipta Bhagavatam. I think in the 9th chapter we come to the Chatushloki Bhagavata, which was given to Brahmaji. That we'll deal next. And this is Sankshipta Bhagavata, wherein all the Leelas are included here. And you will be wonderstruck that they are not just 1 or 2 or 10 avatars. There are so many kinds of avatars. And the avatars can be Kriya Pradhana. Kriya Pradhana, to do or live a righteous life to guide people. Or sometimes it is Viveka Pradhana. Or sometimes it is Jnana Pradhana. And sometimes it is Leela Pradhana. Leela Pradhana, wherein he does not mind showing off his great prowess of being the God. When he was Rama, he was Karya Pradhana, he was showing people of a righteous path. Whereas he was Krishna, he didn't mind showing off. Why? Apan Bhagwan hai. How can Lord do this? I am the boss. Dare you question? Supposing you are directing a play. It is your play, your script, your direction. How the characters or the plots twist, can anybody question you? So whenever something is happening, that is how I wanted it. Here in Krishna's life, it is all Leela Pradhana. The only aspect that you can attribute to it is because he was God. And he showed his prowess. So that starts, he says, Brahmaji says, that when this whole world was getting submerged, he took the form of Krodakara. Krodim tanum sakala yajnamayim anantaha. He took the form of the boar, Sukara Rupa. For the one who is already reveling into it, wherever they are reveling, it seems most dear to them. Like, where do you find the pigs? In Kichad. It's very beautifully explained here. You know why they love Kichad? Because the very first avatar of that boar, it was to protect the Prithvi. Because of that dear love towards Prithvi, he took that form of a boar. Now, any form of that boar, where would it love to be? It may not look pleasing to us, but it loves that earth. With that love for earth, he comes down as the form of Krodim Tanum Sakala Yajnamayim Anantaha. And then, in that Krodha Rupa, with his bare fist and his teeth, he took care of Hiranyaksha within that waters of deluge. This was his first form. Jato ruchera janayat suyamana suyagnaha akutir anasutam anasu akuti sunum aranatha dakshinayam swayam bhuvena manuna haririti anuktaha. The next form that he was born was as the son of Ruchi Prajapati and his wife Akuti. He was born as Suyagnya. In this avatar, he got married to Dakshinayam, to a pious lady called Dakshina. And in this form, he had killed many disturbing Daityas who were disturbing the Devas. That is why Swayambhu Manu, Swayambhuvena Manuna, by Swayambhu Manu, he was called Hari, the one who had the capacity to take away lots of troubles, Sankata. The one Harati Sankatani iti Harihi. So Swayambhu Manu called him as Hari. So there was this Hari who was born as Suyagnya. Jagne Chakardrama Dvijadeva Hutyam Stribhis Samam Navabhiratmagatim Swamatre. To Kardama and Devahuti, along with 9 daughters, 9 sisters, was born this son called Kapila. Such an established one he was in the knowledge that as he took birth, he gave this knowledge to his own mother, Devahuti. And that is what is today recognized as the Sankhya Yoga. And then he taught his mother how to get beyond the Trigunas. After this was born. Sometimes people have various kinds of peculiar desires. And when they are devotees, they are like, you have a puppet and the puppet has strings. How would the puppet act? As the one who is pulling the strings, the same way it would act. Strange that this whole world acts as a puppet in the hands of the Lord, and the Lord himself acts as a puppet in the hands of devotees. If you have that devotion, in that devotion you can play with that Lord. Sometimes you can scold him. Or else imagine, why would the Lord be a charioteer? Though Arjuna wanted it, it was just out of love. That is what he said in the whole of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, I am here only because I love you so dearly. that I am ready to be your charioteer. So the Lord serves that devotee. So here, Atri and Anasuya, they had a peculiar desire. What was their desire? To have the Lord himself as their son. Lord Narayana is not that easy to grasp, that easy to catch. He evaded that question of Atri and Anasuya. Finally, he was so happy with their devotion. He says that I give myself. Datto mayahamiti yat bhagavan sadattaha. I give myself to you. And amazing, or who expressed with this glow of anybody who followed him, with whatever desire, whether of bhoga or of moksha, those siddhis were provided to them by Dattatreya. And then he says, Brahmaji says, that I was also lucky. How come you are lucky? Because Lord, you are the first one from that Lord? No. See, this shows a parent. When does the parent feel very happy? There are two phases of that child. One, when you go into a gathering, you introduce yourself as a son of so and so or the daughter of so and so. They have their name and you use that name to present yourself. I am son of so and so. Do you remember them? They've asked me to meet you. Oh, now I know. You look exactly like them. Sometimes these kids don't like that. Tell them that you look exactly like your mother or father. That is one phase wherein you introduce yourself, your existence gets valid because of the parents and their great virtues. That is not when the parents are happy. When are the parents happy? When they are passing by and people around recognize, you remember that kid? They are his parents. The parent also feels, Mera beta. Supposing your child has done something extremely good at school or in some educational things or sports events. It may be a small thing within your community or within that school level. And you overhear people looking at you and talking. You remember that child who was, who had done outstanding in spelling bee? Their parents. Yes, it is me. Your heart just expands with that love. That is what is Brahmaji happy about. I was also very grateful and happy. Why? The first ones that I have created, that are born out of my tapas shakti, the first result of my tapas shakti. In one way, if I look at it, they did not serve my purpose. Because what was the purpose of Brahmaji? To create, to expand. And the first four of them who were created were the Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanata and Sanat Kumar. Four eternal young children. Manasa Putra of Brahmaji. They were the result of tapascharya. There is another word for tapascharya, tapa meaning sana. That is why they were all named out of Sana. Sanaka, Sanandana, Sanatana and Sanat Kumar. Though they were not into the creation process, but I was happy that the Lord took form in these four eternal divine children. Even that father feels so happy. Probably not at that moment when they just abandoned and went. It was only later, while talking to his other son, Narada. Because at that time when they went out, he felt really miserable. What is it? I'm creating something, and then they just go off. Instead of going to the pravritti, they go to nivritti. Am I aiming wrong? There is another story added to that. What is the story? Is that when he created these four, they went away. The next one who was created was Narada himself. He also went along with his older brothers. Then he created 10,000 sons. All 10,000 of them, in Brahmaji's opinion, were corrupted by Narada. Something is wrong with human psychology, wherein when you take to the path of nivritti, it is considered as a path of corruption. सब कुछ तो गड़बड़ है. Or why are they not normal like the other children? Even Brahmaji felt that. Then finally Brahmaji thought, if this whole creation process has to work, though nivritti is also good, I should create somebody who is obedient, who can go for the pravritti. This is a blueprint of the creation, Baba. So what did he create? He created 10,000 girls, daughters. And they were obedient. They did their tapasya, came back and said, Father, what next to do? He said, हाँ, लड़के तो नालायक निकले. Meaning, if you see your own children, especially the sons, disobedient, it is the manufacturer's defect. It started right from there. But inside, Brahmaji knew that though they have taken to the Nivritti Marga, they are no less. They have done the best thing. And he was proud of them. So then were created these four, and they were the creation, they were the expression of the Lord in the form of these eternal divine children. Then he says, the one who laid foundation for tapasya itself were Nara and Narayana, who were born to Dharma and Dakshakanya. They took forms of a mountain. If you go to Badrinath, one side is called Nara, the other side is called Narayana. When you go to the temple, you have to cross the river. When you cross the river, you are getting onto the Narayana Parvata. From where? From the Nara Parvata. That is where Badri Narayana is. And the legend belief is that those two mountains are the very Nara Narayana who are still in that tapasya, taken the form of the mountains. And their tapasya is even today praised by not just the Mahatmas but the Devas also. So those Nara and Narayana were born to Dharma and Dakshakanya. How great were these two, Nara Narayana? They said, even great Lord like Shiva, when Kama, desire, Cupid, wanted to distract Lord, he says, Rosha Drishtya Rosham Dahantam. He had that Rosha Drishti. He was like, used that anger. But whereas with Nara Narayana, there were so many scores of people who tried to distract them. But even before they reached in front of them, their tapashakti was so powerful that they would forget the purpose for which they had come and sit in front of them, and they will also start doing tapasya. That is the way to live in this world. When parents come and they complain, my son is a 24 karat gold. He's a really nice fellow. There is no problem with my child. It is the company of my son, the friends, they are bad. My logic to them is, if your son is really that good, wherever your son is, that influence would be on the rest of them, not the other way around. Probably it is just a gold plating. Inside there is something else. The gold plating may be 24 karat. But what is it plated upon? Maybe a different issue wherein he is matching with the rest of them. You see, in front of Nara and Narayana, there are all these apsarasas and people who came to distract him, including Indra, who comes to disturb them, sits down along with them to do tapasya. That should be the kind of firmness of conviction of whatever we do in life, that it not be shaken by few trivialities around. So firm from within that even those people who come in contact with us get influenced by that firmness, taking towards that righteous path. Meaning Brahmaji has placed Nara and Narayana above Shiva himself. Now sometimes some of these fanatics, we also have our set of fanatics. When especially talking about Bhagavatam, Hare Rama Rama, any other form of God is considered as tuchha. Especially so of Lord Shiva. And they read this sloka again and again to insist that don't worship Lord Shiva, worship Krishna alone. He is superior than Lord Shiva. And the point is not that. And the point here is that these two were firm in their tapascharya, which could influence anybody and not get influenced by this kama, krodha and other things that were trying to distract them. After this, there was this young child of Uttanapada. Now this Uttanapada's son, who was born to what was her name? Suruchi was the other mother. Suniti. Suniti. Now Suniti's child, he runs to his father, and the father, before he could say something, the mother stops him. He wanted that position. I tell you, even Suruchi was not that bad. See, what, in my opinion, after going through Bhagavat, who is bad? The one who takes you away from Lord is bad. Even her suggestion to him was, Lord was the one who created you as the son of Suniti, so you don't have the authority of your father and his lap, sitting in his lap. You don't have that luxury. So pray to that Lord to be born as my son. She didn't just disqualify him, she also gave him the solution. Go worship that Lord. So Suruchi is also good in one way, that she directed Dhruva. Dhruva, he was just 5 years old. Balaha api son, tapase vanani. He had gone to his tapascharya. So intense was his tapascharya that he became one with the nature, Prakriti. And at one time of his tapascharya, this was just 6 months tapascharya. Huh? Within 6 months, a 5-year-old had the Lord coming down running for him. That is the kind of firmness, dhruvatva. So he comes down running saying, Are Baba, shwas le lo. Because he had become one with the macrocosm in his single pointed effort, that he withdrew himself taking breath. The whole macrocosmic air just stopped. Stambana. Everybody started pleading to the Lord. If this kid goes like this, the whole Srishti will be in Pralaya. Go give him darshan. See, when the home minister, the actual boss of the house, says something, you cannot negate it. So Lakshmi ji says, go. And Narayana, poor fellow, comes. Why? It is now requested by Lakshmi ji herself to give him darshana. So great was his tapascharya, focus, single-pointedness, though it started out from a hurt feeling. But when dedicated towards the Lord, that also yields the darshan of the Lord. That is what I like about the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Many of the intellectuals, they don't even go through the first chapter because they start with the second chapter where the Lord starts speaking. And the name given to that first chapter is called Vishada Yoga. Arjuna Vishada Yoga. See, he had his Vishada, grief. With his grief, he did not turn to worldliness. And when we have a lot of grief, in today's world it would be called depression. So what would the doctors give us? Put us on some medication. Put us on some medication so that we numb ourselves. Or self-medicated to numb ourselves. There are many processes. You know that, right? And he did not take support of that. He turned towards the Lord. His Vishada also became a yoga. You have heard of Bhakti becoming a yoga, Jnana becoming a yoga, Viveka becoming a yoga. And here is the case wherein Vishada becomes a yoga. Vishada would lead to Viyoga, but here Arjuna is a specific case wherein it becomes yoga, not the Viyoga. Not pangs of separation, pangs of frustration, but turning towards the Lord, becoming yoga. Here is another example of Dhruva, because of whom there was another avatar of the Lord to please this kid and gave him Dhruva Padam. He said, what do you ask of this temporary luxury of sitting on the lap of your father? I give you the highest permanent place, reveling in that supreme. In fact, when Lord approached Dhruva, he says, if I ask something out of you, why would you be God? Meaning, it is your duty to take care of me. And why should I ask you how to take care of me? No, you do your duty. If I do your duty, why should I call you Lord? Go do your duty, he says. I tell you, Bhakta standpoint, you can play with the Lord. And the Lord also lovingly plays with you. Dhruva Padam, Dhruvagatim grunate prasannaha. After this, there was this terrible, monstrous king. So much that in Manusmriti, they said, of the whole Manushya Rupa, the terrible form that you could see, as an example, is King Vena. Yad Vena Mutpatagatam Dvijavakya Vraja. He had done such terrible deeds that the ancestral glow that he had lot of splendor from his ancestors that he had inherited. All of that was lost. And he was going into the Naraka. Because of the sincerity of his forefathers, knowing that Dvija, all great men, came together in pleasing that Lord. And the Lord came in the form from the churning of this Vena, he came to be called as Pruthu. So great was this king, after whom this earth was called Prithvi. So King Prithu was born, and he was the one who milked out everything from the earth, that which we see today. And this is in the Satya Yuga. Then came the avatar of the Lord, wherein he was the son of Raja Nabhi and his wife Sudevi. Nabhe rasau vrishabha asa Sudevi sunuhu yo vai chachara samdruk jada yoga charyam. And what was his famous yoga? It's called Jada Yoga. Probably, in other words, even what we do is a Jada Yoga. Trying to find balance and fulfillment of yoga through Jada inert objects. We are experts at it. But his Jada Yoga was totally different. So when he had done with all his responsibilities, gave up his kingdom to his sons, he withdrew completely, reveling in the contemplation of the Lord, that the people, when they looked at him, thought he was Jada. Jada to that world for which we are awakened. And he was the one who started the first parampara of Yat Parahamsasya Rishayaha Padamamananti. The parampara of Paramahamsa. Or the other words, it is also called, he was the first Avadhuta Acharya. We keep hearing of Avadhuta. Now Avadhutas are those people or those great masters who do not fall into the category of Varna Ashrama Dharma. How many ashramas do we have? Sincerely, there was one person who was, initials into Chinmaya Mission. I think, Swamiji, we have in Chinmaya Mission 350 ashrams. That is not the ashram we are talking about. We have Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. These are the four. The one who does not belong to either one of them, who is way beyond any one of these, who does not have any responsibility whatsoever in these four ashramas and reveling in that supreme, such one is called an Avadhuta or a Paramahamsa. They are so intoxicated with the thought of Lord. Like people who are afraid to let Ramakrishna Paramahamsa go out in the night. Why? Seeing that darkness, he would be reminded of Kali and immediately he would go into Samadhi, standing wherever he was. And suddenly they are starting some bhajan kirtana. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was I would call him a Neo Maharshi. Because he used to go to some place, social place that were enacted. He would take along with him Swami Vivekanandji, Swami Brahmanandji. And in the play, if there is a word of divinity uttered, some sublime thought which reminds him of Mother Divine. When he sees a mother showering love, it is just a play. When he sees the mother in the play showering love to her kid, he would just be transported to another world. He would just get into that, transfixed into that samadhi. When it will happen, how it will happen, where it will happen, nobody knew it. He would just revel into that supreme. Suddenly everybody is singing songs and he would just stand up and he would be standing there for hours together. Like when kids have this statue and then you freeze into a position, he would freeze into that position His body would not respond to any external stimulus. Internally he was lost in the thought of mother. Such are the Paramahamsa or the Avadhuta, wherein nothing of the externality can ever touch them. Such parampara was the first one called Rishabhadeva. Satre mamasa bhagavan hayashi rashathaha. Hayaha meaning a horse. He took the form of a horse head incarnation. He was called the Hayagriva, the protector of dharma, protector of yajna, protector of the Vedas. In fact, whose nishvasa, whose exhalation were the Vedas that were born. Now, it seems pretty unscientific to think that somebody's nishvasa becomes Veda. We are saying something. The natural process is you can say something only when you are exhaling the breath. So when he communicated to the rishis and devas, all that which he communicated were the Vedic literature. Nishvasitavyam. That was the Hayagriva avatar. Then Yuganta Samaye. Then once when the Yuganta, the Kalpa was coming to an end, and the would-be Manu, in his earlier prayer life, in the earlier Yuga, this happened in the Chakshusha Manvantara. There would be Manu, called the Satyavrata Manu. He received the Lord in the form of a Matsya. He received it in the form of a fish. But there was something fishy about this fish. Probably that is where we coined the word called fishy. So it was a small, tiny little fish. See, he took an Anjali. When doing his Sandhya Vandana, he took an Anjali to leave the Arghya. So when he saw a fish. A speaking fish. I don't feel secured in this water. Can you put me in your kamandalu? He said, "Theek hai." And then he took his arghya, finished it. By the time he finished his Sandhya Vandana, the fish was again talking. "Oh great Maharshi, I feel suffocated in your kamandalu. Shift me to something else." The moment he shifted, it grew into that size and shape. Finally, it satiated itself with its size and shape when shifted into the ocean. And to its golden horn was tied a huge boat with all species of creatures which were saved during the deluge. And thus was born the Matsyavatara. He says there are many more such avatars. The one interesting, he says, the Lord took the form Kshiro Dadhau Amaradanava Yuthapanam, the Devas and the Danavas, they were struggling hard to churn the Mantharachala Parvata. And it was sinking down. The Lord, who had taken a form of tortoise, said, "Put it on my back." So it was put on his back. A hard shell on the tortoise's back. Very beautifully explained. Prushtena Kachapa Vapuhu, on the back of the tortoise, for years he was feeling like itching. And you can understand a tortoise, right? The legs and movements are pretty limited. And did not give him good sleep, it seems. So when the Mantharachal Parvat was put, he had little ease of that itch. And thus he fell asleep, it seems. Sukha ki neend. After a long time, he had a happy sleep by providing support. Point is that providing support to that Manthurachal Parvata was no big deal for that Lord in the Kachchapa avatar. In fact, while it was being churned, what was he doing? He was taking a nap. It didn't even bother him. There is another subtler point. We struggle between good and bad. Meanwhile, the innermost core of us, the consciousness, what is it doing? As though sleeping. When we go beyond this antarmathana, in the light of clarity, when we go beyond this good and bad duality, what we come to perceive is that ever-existing Lord. So after the Kachchapa avatar was the most Kritva Brahmad Bhrukuti Dramshta Karala Vaktram, terrible face, very terrifying Ugra Rupa of the Lord was born as Narasimha. In fact, the way it is described here, after he tore open from the pillar, he was so at rage that he was moving here and there on the globe. And Hiranyakashipu followed him. And what did he do? He says, Durau nipatya vidadara nakhaispurantham. So he lifted him, put him on his lap, and then did an open surgery. Right then and there. So in order to bless the Daitya Srestha. Who was Daitya Srestha? Prahlada. Again, Prahlada's life is so beautiful. Irrespective of where you are born, whether you have opportunities or not. Irrespective of what kind of samskara, what kind of genetics that you are born to. Most of us, I was born into such an environment. I was having such kind of parenting. I had such kind of childhood. Instead of blaming all that, he stayed focused onto the Lord. And he did have the darshan of that Lord. So don't blame what kind of condition, what kind of experience, what kind of situation that we are in. But focus in spite of that on that Lord. Like in spite of being a Daitya, a father who was compelling him, threatening him, he stayed focused onto that Lord. That was the Narsimha Rupa. Then comes the avatar wherein Gajendra Pade Gruhito Grahena, whose leg was caught by the Graha, the crocodile, who is very powerful in the waters. Artaha, the one who was in lot of pain. After a lot of struggle, it seems when he had gone into the waters, he had gone there to pluck few lotuses to impress the other female elephants. Thousands of them who were around. And when he turned to look for help from these who had been following, when the crocodile had caught, not a single elephant was there to support him. They had ran away. So he had struggled for years. They had a tough battle. And then he says, Ahed, he started crying out loud. Adi Purusha Khila Lokanatha Tirtha Shrava Shravana Mangala Namadheyaha. What did he call? He said, Adi Purusha Akhila Lokanatha. Hey Lord, who are the very supreme in this universe, Tirtha Shravaha, the one whose very thought becomes the Tirtha. You don't need to go to Tirtha. If you have that sincerity to think of that Lord, contemplate of that Lord, that very Kshetra becomes Tirtha. In fact, even Narada Bhakti Sutra, Naradji says that when Mahatmas go, Tirthi Kurvanti Tirthani. So most of us, when we go there to get purified. Take dubki in Gangaji and feel fresh from all papa. But when Mahatmas go there, they purify even that Tirtha. Now such kind of effect is of the contemplation of the Lord in your own heart. Such Lord, he says, how difficult is it? He says, Shravana Mangala Namadheyaha. What is his name? He is called Shravana Mangala. Like yesterday we had read another word, Subhadra Shravase. It is just the name, Sankirtya Narayana Shabda Matram. Just by hearing, you're not even saying it. In that sincere heart, when you just hear the name of Lord Narayana, Sakala Papaihi Pramuchyate, all papas get relieved. You get relieved from all papas. The moment he heard it, he was in fact looking at this battle between the Gajendra and the crocodile, waiting. Arey Baba, bula lo ek baar. That is Lord's compassion. Please, even by mistake, call once and I'll be there. So beautifully depicted in the other Bhagavatas that I have read is that he just ran from his place, Vaikuntha. His Padaraksha, the shoes that he was wearing, came running behind. Arey Lord, where will you go without us? Please wear us. Garudji, who was always ready, in a splash of a second he saw, where is Lord going without me? And he said, Lord, don't tire yourself, let me take you there. Then came in all these Astra Shastra. Meaning, when the weight is depicted there, the meaning is the Lord is eager to come in, provided we are that eager to open ourselves. Then came the Vamana. This Vamana Rupa is the most misinterpreted story, I tell you. The way it is described here, you get that harpulations the moment you see how Lord has his compassion. It was Bali. Bali was taught by Shukracharya, his own guru, that it is okay to break your promise. He said no. Meaning, if you are living a righteous life, Swadharma Nishtha Paraha, the Lord comes asking from such people. You have heard that song, right? Kabhi kabhi Bhagwan ko bhi bhakton se kaam pade. Now here is the Lord himself who has created this multifold universe and coming to Bali. The Lord of the universe coming, standing in front of him, Bhikshandehi. And as a blessing, he had his own request, hidden agenda, Vamana. He says, I need somebody who is trustworthy in the Sutala Vitala Mahatala, who can manage those worlds. And Bali says, anything for you, Lord. In fact, he says, you don't need to have asked me even, you just have to tell me, go there, and I would have gone. Just by living the righteous life. Swadharma Nishtha Paraha. Bali got his mukti, wherein that feat which great Mahatma, Sadhu, search for that feet, Lord was ready to put it on his head. Tubhyam cha narada vrisham bhagavan vivruddha. He says, Narada, when this kalpa was started, you who are born as Narada, Lord appeared to you in the form of a swan, Hamsa. And look at the way father calls his own son, Tubhyam. Tubhyam is not like tu. He says, your good self. Such a adar bhava. Why? Because Narada was so devoted to the Lord. When you, with your burning desire to know about this truth, you prayed, and the Lord himself came in the form of a swan, Hamsa, giving you the Upadesha, called the Hamsa Gita. It says he took such various forms, and then came the Rama, who took care of Ravana. Then the best of all avatars is the Krishna avatar. And what happened in Krishna avatar? He says while he was still not even months old, he took the very prana of Putana. And when he was 3 months old, here he says, when he was just 3 months old, what did he do? He just, very playfully kicked the cart. In the Shakatasura who had taken the form of a cart, he just kicked. And it got such a blow that it fell back as a dead Asura, Shakatasura. One might consider, a small kid doing it, you are exaggerating. He says this is one form of the Lord, avatar of the Lord, wherein it is completely full of Leela. Leela, not following the logic and trend of normal human principles. Why he did it? Because he was the Lord. This kind of chamatkar can happen only because he was the Lord. It's called Leela avatar. Then when he was, started walking on his, or crawling on his knees and hand, he went through those trees. And Yamala Arjuna got relieved. Then when people were getting scared to get into Yamuna because of the Kaliya, he relieved them with that Kaliya. That is another prasanga when we come in 10th canto. When Kaliya does the prarthana, he has one question to ask to the Lord. Lord, did I ask for creating me with poison in me? It was your creation that you created me with poison. Then now when I am doing my duty of my swadharma, then why are you punishing me? Then the Lord says, Are pagal, do you think this is punishing you? I am playing with you, dancing with you. See, the point there is, when you do your swadharma, the Lord loves to celebrate with you. Whatever be the reason, whatever be the bahana, he will find a method to come and play with you. That was the Kaliya. Then as they were all tired after that Kaliya incident, they were sleeping on the shores of Yamunaji. There was this munja grass that all was burnt. And he asked all these Gvalabala who were sleeping there to close their eyes. He along with Balarama protected them at that young age. Then his mother, vexed with his mischievous behavior, constant complaints from everybody, so disgusted she was that she wanted to tie him down. Strange enough that when she started trying to tie him down, Grunhita yat, She grabbed the rope. Every time she grabbed a bigger rope, it fell just 2 inches short. And she was wondering, what is happening to all that rope? And then once she suddenly caught him eating mud, and he just threw that mother off balance by opening the mouth. The whole Brahmanda was there. She thought there was some kind of Maya, some jadoo on the child. And she takes to the nearest mantra tantra karta to do some jadoo phuka. That is what mother will think. And she was not ready to believe that it was the Lord himself. Then when there was the case of the Vyomasura, who tried to hide all the Gwalabalas into the cave, or when you talk of the snake, he protected them. And the best was when there was the change of Gopair Makhe Pratihate Vrajra Viplavaya. Makhe to Indra. They were worshipping Indra. He said, change it. Worship Govardhana. Indra got mad. And he started pouring down like as though it would pour for 7 years continuously. That kind of waters were poured. How many days? Continuously for 7 days. Saptadine. And what did he do? He lifted the whole Govardhana Parvata on his little finger without changing or shifting for 7 days. First everybody just scrambled in, didn't even bother how this Govardhana Parvata is standing up. If they wanted to protect their wife, children, cow, calf, after a day or two, when everybody settled down underneath, they said, how is this standing up? Then on the stone up there was standing Lord Krishna holding on to it. He was for them a mitra, friend. So they all ran to him. All the Gwalabalas and his friends ran to him and put their lati. Krishna, now you take a break. Here Brahmaji says, just for that loving nature, caring nature of this Gwalabala, who had no sadhana, who are so vyasta in their own karma, still got their mukti because of their liking to the Lord. There was no other upasana done by them. All that they were doing was, they had an immense love for the Lord and they got their mukti. Such is the beautiful Hari Kirtana. And Brahmaji says, O Narada, this whole Srishti and the creation system and the avatara system was taught to me by Lord Narayana himself, which in a Sankshipta form I am giving it to you, which is called Bhagavata. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Yanme Bhagavato Ditam Sangrahoyam Vibhuti Nam. Why is it called Bhagavata? Bhagavatoditam. It is given by the Lord himself of the glories of all these devotees. And if somebody has to cross over this Maya, whether you are, whatever yoni that you are in, it does not matter. The Sangati of a Bhakta, it is easily crossed over. You don't even need to get to the sadhana. The one who is already doing a sadhana, you just need to get into their Sangati, into their companionship, and you get mukti. It's something like there is already somebody who has dug a well. Okay. Do you need to put an effort to dig a well? All that you have to do is pull the water out and drink. So listening to Harikatha, listening to Shravana is like taking out that water of the well which is already dug. So Narada, Now today I request you that this Bhagavata that is given to you, make the sankalpa to expand on it. So way before Parikshit and Shuka Maharaj had the opportunity to discuss on Bhagavata, this was the first Bhagavata, or rather it should be called the second Bhagavata, because it was already given by the Lord to Brahmaji. And Narada gave this knowledge to Vyasa. This is called the Sankshipta Bhagavatam. It's still not satisfying. Because Shaunaka is going to ask Sutaji, in second chapter you just rush us with the Bhagavata. Aren't you going to explain all that? And that is when the whole 10th canto gets expanded. That we will see in 10th canto. Tomorrow we will go through the Bhagavata, Chatushloki Bhagavata, if it comes by then. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.